Laos is untamed, a land where the wild thrives along with the rhythms of daily life.
Man, this is a pretty spot on some of these Laotian rivers. One day I would like to take a boat down, maybe one of those bomb boats. That'd be fun.
From the animistic rituals of the Katu people to these shimmering rivers overflowing with gold and the ingenious reuse of remnants of past wars, Laos to me is a country that hums with the tenacity and a raw, gritty type of charm. We start out in Kandon, where the primal ceremonies of the Katu people resonate with the power of ancient beliefs.
Why do they sacrifice a buffalo each year?
When you do something bad for your family and somebody in your family gets sick, you should kill this animal. If the biggest one, they kill buffalo. If the small one, cow and goat and pig.
So this poor fella behind me is the subject of today's ritual. There are maybe 10, 15 buffaloes that have been slaughtered at various points.
Here, culinary practices are as undiluted as the ceremonies themselves. Traditional dishes like beer, a raw buffalo dish that mirrors the intensity and authenticity of these spiritual offerings.
So there we have it. That's sort of like, I don't know what part of the intestine. Got to admit, I'm not the biggest offal fan in the first place, and eating this raw, I mean, man.
Next, we journey to the Namsung River, a place seemingly overflowing with gold.
Already we've seen a few different gold mining operations on the way here. Seems like a very popular thing to do in this section of the river.
Where local villagers continue the age-old tradition of hand panning.
What's the most amount of gold she's ever got in one day?
Almost close to 15 grams, about 20 million kip.
20 million kip, it's about $1,000. $1,000 a day.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I'd take that. Look, if I make it big, I'm not gonna lie guys, this might be the last episode. It seems like every time they finish one pan of gold, they're getting decent sized chunks at this point of gold. You can hear just from the excitement in their voices whether they've got someone on.
But with the influx of large mining operations, these tranquil waters are at a crossroads.
Yes, yeah, that is nearby.
Much like the infamous mines of the Philippines, where treasure comes at tremendous risk.
What does the air taste like? Isn't it weird breathing through a tube?
Oil. It tastes like petrol.
Man.
Like 7 people, and they try to crack it, and then it explodes. 6 people dead.
Picture a landscape so scarred by war that even your utensils are forged from shrapnel.
How many spoons can his family make in one day?
Yeah, so about 800 to 1,000 spoons per day.
800 to 1,000 spoons,
Yeah.
That's wild.
In Tarbak and Phomsavan, relics of the conflict are not just reminders of the past, they're a resource, repurposed into essential tools for daily life.
We're surrounded by UXOs, actual UXOs. These are unexploded ordnance. I assumed that they'd already been cleared. What am I doing here? Why am I filming this?
This kind of boat is very long-term use, 100 years or more than that.
In 2023,
There were about 47 people were killed and injured.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of them. There's a serious amount of UXOs, and everyone seems to have an order. Everyone seems to be busy.
This is Laos. Wild, enduring, a country where every path tells a story of survival against the backdrop of a land that refuses to be tamed. First up, we head to Kandon. It's the raw, unvarnished truth of a Katu ritual sacrifice that hits you. A powerful blend of tradition and brutal practicality, served straight up.
Hard to really remove the fact from what you're eating, but man.
The Katu people worship ancestors, ghosts, and nature's spirits.
Man, I really do love the sort of designs on these things. It seems that smoking is a pretty big part of the culture here.
It's a brand of animism that's as authentic and as rigorously practiced as I have come across.
Possibly one of the largest Katu annual buffalo sacrifices anywhere in the world.
Ritual sacrifice here is core to their way of life. In the not so distant past, it included humans. Nowadays, thankfully, it's only animals. With their religious calendar culminating in a grand ceremony centered around the offering of a buffalo. And that's why I'm here.
Alright guys, we just got to the Katu village here. It's been a mission to get to, and it's something that I've been planning for years now. It's really a pretty beautiful village, dusty, red, kind of reminds me of the Australian outback in some ways. Very, very dry place.
And with the support of Moon, a local guide, and the warm hospitality of his uncle Onkam, I've been given the opportunity to stay here, experience the traditional ceremony, and breathe in the life of the village.
Okay, thank you for having a chat with me. Has your uncle ever been to Vietnam?
ไปอยู่แต่บ่ฮอดเมืองเวียดเพียงแต่ว่าชายแดนต่อชายแดนอันนั้นระหว่างคนกระตูต่อกระตูเอาไป
We are checking out the preparations around this Katu village, and I'm going to do a little bit of comparison to the Katu culture that I know here in Vietnam.
Just wandering around the village, you start to get a real feel for the Katuic brand of animistic beliefs, especially as they gear up for the big ritual.
So this gull house or guang is very similar to the gull houses that I've seen in Vietnam.
This is animal that they want to keep because when they move it here first time, this place used to be abundant and lots of kind of animal that you see, and they want to keep it because some of them is extinct already. So they try to keep it as a handcraft like this to represent that it's still with us here today.
It's the coffins that are on display below the grain storage huts that give you the first insight into the unique beliefs here. It's an expression of the Katu's animistic faith, where spirits are entwined with daily life, especially with health matters.
If someone die in the harvesting season, you cannot take them to the cemetery yet. You have to keep them in the barn and feed them every day.
Wow.
We spot other signs of this also. Each home is adorned with a pole for offerings or sacrifices. It's used as part of their deep-rooted belief in making amends with the spirit world.
Why do they sacrifice a buffalo each year?
ฮีดพิธีเอาถ้าพิษใหญ่มันกินข่วย
The reason why they kill the animal to do sacrifice is when you do something bad for your family or something that you've done wrong and somebody in your family gets sick or ill, you should kill this animal. It depends on how big the problem is. So if the biggest one, they kill buffalo. If the small one, cow and goat and pig and along the way.
This is part of some of the animism beliefs here. There's sort of the ritual sacrifice of the buffalo is part of like relieving the sins of the village.
Yes. Yes.
I see.
I learned that in this spiritual economy here, the necessity to offer larger sacrifices, such as more valuable or larger animals, escalates with the severity of one's illness or the magnitude of the favor sought from the spirits. Houses are adorned with animal skulls from previous offerings, and each doorway is decorated with a wasp nest. These are barriers against unwanted spirits and guests.
มือเดียวเขาพามือขึ้นเฮือนกินช่องโตตะปัดดับ
Okay. This is interesting. How many head you see in that one? That means I get into this house and I feed with 2 buffalo, I'm pretty wealthy and like a kind of show off thing.
I see, I see.
That house have 1, but he has 2 people who come to my house.
I see. It's sort of like a wealth status thing.
Yes, yeah.
I like that, man.
We meet 2 ladies who've just finished making some buffalo rice cakes right in their garden. It's something that I recognize from Katu villages in Vietnam, and I'm eager to try to see if there's any difference.
Super hot right now. It's crazy. Like, obviously it's not going to come across on camera, but she's obviously just taken it off this pot that's cooking in the corner there. Chao menta. Let's try it.
It's like sticky rice. No sugar in it. It's just plain.
Right. It's not sweet at all, and there's no filling. The versions of this that I've had prior to this have had sort of a mung bean paste in the middle of it. Sometimes even a little bit of pork, but this is pure sticky rice. Looks like a pretty local variety of sticky rice. There's still a little bit of purple in there, a little bit of the husk. It's really good though.
Yum.
Something else that clearly stands out is that each home is growing its own tobacco crop. And tobacco here is not just a crop, it's a cornerstone of this village's culture. It's woven into their daily rituals, and it's very much a core part of their daily routine and life.
They didn't buy anything from the factory for smoking. They're going to cut by themselves.
So they never buy tobacco commercially? No. They always grow it around
here? They grow it by themselves.
There you go. That is subsistence farming. You don't even buy your own cigarettes. You just make it in your back garden. I like it.
They draw it in through long bamboo water pipes. To me, it seems like a local twist on the northern Vietnamese Thuốc Lao.
This lady was very proud of this one, came and showed it to me, and they are an intricate design. It's really gorgeous.
This is what we call gong.
And what is this on the outside?
Bamboo, and then they carve by a sharp knife.
Wow, thank you.
Okay. They cut it, they chop a small piece, and then they put sugar in it and with water, and they try to squeeze it until it like this, so they can put in the top like this and put that one.
They smoke it.
They smoke it, yeah. This is how they do a cigarette here.
Wow. Alright, so these guys have offered for me to have some of this. I've never done the Thuốc Lao in Vietnam. Is quite similar, but much more intense. That's more like a bong. Looks a little bit more chill.
Okay, try. How's it?
I don't think I got any.
Okay. You get it? One more try.
Yeah, it's really light. That's a lot easier than smoking, I've got to admit, and it's way easier than Thuốc Lao.
It's an odd fusion, and it kind of reminds me of a shisha crossed with a marijuana bong. And concerningly here, the tradition reaches down to even the youngest in the community. And it's not something that I've even seen in the Katu villages on the Vietnamese side of this mountain range. And so it does leave me wondering about its origin.
Has your uncle ever been to Vietnam?
Oh, okay. He said he'd been to Vietnam, but he hasn't been into central Vietnam, but a Katu part of the Vietnam.
Right.
To exchange, like...
To trade?
Yeah.
To barter?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Can he speak Katu with the Katu in Vietnam?
Yes.
I can, just like you can.
Yeah.
Ah, that's good. So it's interesting, like the people were split, but the language is the same.
Cam Don's story is one of remarkable endurance. Originally located by the Annamite Range near the Vietnamese border and much closer to the dense population of Katu villages there, it was moved in the early 2000s for practical reasons. The Laotian government deemed it easier to provide the villagers with services like electricity, roads and water. However, unlike other relocated Katu villages that have seemingly just blended in with the broader Laotian cultural landscape, Cam Don has managed to hold on to its unique Katuic identity. Moon tells me that this is the last of its kind, that it's managed to somehow maintain its cultural essence in a quickly changing global world, and that his village, also a Katuic village that was relocated, was not so lucky.
The government tried to keep this village, but I don't think that my village would do the same.
Maybe it's too late for your village.
Yeah, it's too late for my village, so they're still brand new village, so it's easy to keep them.
And that much of the tradition there is no longer practiced and now lost with younger generations. And so now it seems that Kandon has drawn some attention due to its significance. The government now is stepping in to protect the traditions that have made Kandon so unique and that make it stand out. They're trying to promote the culture of this village and encourage traditional practices and ways of life. It's pretty refreshing to see, as there's something mesmerizingly beautiful about this place. The air is dry and dusty, the earth is red and brown, and all of this frames a life of agrarian simplicity and Katu tradition. There's a beautifully maintained carved Xuan house standing proudly in the center of the village. The women weave below their homes with traditional backstrap looms, and the communal buzz around the upcoming ceremony goes on. Drums get a fresh skin, animals are tied to their offering poles, and villagers begin to slowly swap out their daily wear for traditional hand-woven clothing. This ceremony is the heartbeat of this rural region. It draws eyes and support from everyone, from provincial officials to Katu families that are now spread all across Laos. And as we stand by waiting, 2 buffaloes are trucked in and tied to the Xuan house.
So this poor fella behind me is the subject of today's ritual. He's kind of been tucked away in a corner just to not cause too much commotion so he doesn't get too spooked with all these people and dancing around.
Gongs sound, and led by elders and shaman, a slow ritual dancing procession begins. The aim here is to communicate with the spirits or ancestors.
Life was brutal at times, but this is a culture that would go extinct without villages like this. And I think it's probably a good thing that the government is sponsoring this kind of event.
Behind the men are adults, the men clad as warriors, and behind them children with shaking sticks, each part of this tradition. These rituals are held as a means to seek blessings, to ask for protection and prosperity for the community.
Many people here that are not Katu Laotians from surrounding villages have come to experience this, and with good reason. Like, it's a pretty impressive, symbolic type event.
The buffalo here plays a central role. It is the sacrificial offering to the spirits. The procession continues until it makes 3 full rounds of the Xuan house and buffalo, and then the ceremony reaches its end as quickly as it began. To my surprise, the buffalo are left standing, at least for now. I learn that the actual sacrifice happens after dark.
We didn't get much sleep. This has been going on at every village throughout this entire night.
It's a practical move meant to keep the meat fresh for the whole village. So we settle in for the night.
This is also the same process that they do if a human dies. If a member of the family dies, they will lay the body out in front of the house. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. They'll put the body in a coffin, and then they're gonna do a dancing round that body all night till the sunrise.
What we see that night is a microcosm of the earlier ceremonies, but with a more intimate air. Men tasked with the sacred act of slaughter dance around the buffalo, hammering on gongs and calling out to the spirits. It's a sign of reverence and a message to the spirit world. The actual moment of sacrifice is carried out with a large spear, bridging practical needs with a deep-rooted tradition. And despite the fact that some of these buffaloes and cows are pretty small, these guys have their work cut out for them, preparing all through the night.
There are maybe 10, 15 buffaloes that have been slaughtered at various points. They're killed very early so that the preparations can begin for all of the guests that are arriving into the village. Good night. By the time morning breaks, the hard work is evident. Each buffalo has been carefully sectioned into organized shares, making sure that each family gets a bit of everything from the hide to the organs. And as the men work, they eat the offcuts of the buffalo raw, mainly the intestines. It's dipped in a mix of bile, undigested grass, and stomach acid, and it's eaten straight up. And this guy has invited me to try some. So there we have it. That's sort of like, I don't know what part of the intestine. It doesn't exactly look all that appetizing, I've got to admit. But let's give it a go. I've got to admit, I'm not the biggest offal fan in the first place, and eating this raw, I mean, man. Wow. That's strong. Really strong flavor. Bitter. Intensely bitter. The chilies do help. It's definitely not what I would consider good. So that's how it goes down here, man. Hopefully that helps me get through the day as well. It doesn't hurt me. My host family this morning is also hard at work. They've collected their share of the offering and it's now being prepared into traditional dishes of buffalo tartare or phia. It's similar to the more popular and more widely known lap, found in the Isan regions of Thailand and southern Laos. However, phia is thinly sliced, almost like sashimi, rather than the finely chopped or diced meat that I've eaten when trying lap. Into this mix is added local varieties of mint, sweet basil, salt, and copious amounts of the stomach acid or bile. It is essentially, to me, a watered down bile that's full of semi-digested grass. And despite the mental shock of cooking with an ingredient like this, it does make me wonder if there's method to the madness. That maybe this stuff is acidic enough to in some ways cook the meat similar to cooking ceviche with lime. That's surprisingly good, I think, if you can get past the fact that you're eating raw buffalo mixed with buffalo shit. You get some of that mint, that sweet basil. Man, that is an overload of flavors, just the full spectrum. Spicy, bitter, sweet, fragrant, and you have that undertone of a kind of bloody meat. Really, really interesting dish. It is unique. Out of all the cultures I've eaten at where you eat with your hands, and it's nice to know you wash your hands.
Yeah.
Okay. Kap chai. What a crazy night. We sort of saw a lot of the traditional buffalo sacrifice. We've seen how it's been portioned out for all of the different families.
Yes.
And this is the kind of typical meal that when visiting family members arrive, they're going to be greeted with.
Yes, this is what they're gonna give it for you.
Look, I think let's start with some of the normal buffalo. We'll just take a couple of bites and then we'll move on. And we just use our hands, right?
Yes, use our hand to dipping with the sauce.
Just dip, I see. So we're still going to apply some of this intense dipping sauce.
Yeah.
Man. All right, let's go for it. Wow. The buffalo is kind of like medium rare. I know it looks like it's cooked through, but it's still a little bit juicy. Still very juicy, actually. This sauce, again, man, it's the most intense flavor. Really bitter, really salty, really spicy. Like that's just flavor overload in here.
Yes.
When you grew up, or even now, do you have Katu beliefs? Do you still practice the spiritual beliefs of the Katu people or not?
My dad is still still strict with the Katu culture, but my religion, we believe in Go, which is it's the same as Laos, they believe in Buddhism, but we have Go. But then government tried to change this one. When I was young, they tried to change no Goes anymore. Try to believe Buddhism, to try to be Buddhism. So
right.
So I start losing my original religion.
Right.
Oh, you should try this one.
What's that?
The black one, like the black intestine inside.
The black intestine?
I'm not sure.
I don't know either, but that does sound a little bit challenging. Anything black inside, kind of like a little bit more intimidating to me. And yeah, I mean, for sure. This has got like a whole bunch of gunky stuff clinging onto it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Try it.
Go for it. Chewy.
chewy. It's just completely perfect.
Yeah, you're right. It's just like really well cooked through. That's really quite good. You know, I often find that intestine is a really hard thing to cook, but
Yeah.
that is like perfect. That's like al dente. You can chew it through. It's got a little bit of bite to it, a little bit of crunch, holds its texture. That's really good intestine.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm gonna have a little bit of the sticky
Yeah.
rice to like help ease some of the flavor. Is this the last village in this area that has a preserved Katu culture?
Yes, there will be still a bit of village around here doing the same thing, but this village still doing the unique thing that we still have done probably like 100 years ago.
Right, so this is like the most preserved Katu culture in all of south of Laos.
Yes.
Is it sad to you that your village kind of like lost its Katu roots, or is it okay to you?
A mix of both, yeah. I would say a mix of both. When I think about in the past, is we used to do like this, and we kind of lost our own instinct, you know. And it's a bit sad, but then it's okay to change into new religion, which is sometimes it's better for us. It's like killing buffalo and like this. It's sometimes we don't have to do it because it's use a lot of effort, money to do this kind of custom.
This kind of practice is it's like an expensive way to live in some regards.
Yeah, so that's what we try to stop this kind of tradition.
But are you happy that it still exists in some form?
Yes, I'm so happy that this village still doing the same thing that's what my parents did in the past, which is exciting that I get to see what their life before in this generation, which is so amazing. I love it.
I've always been drawn to the Katu culture, exploring it on my motorbike rides through the mountains of central Vietnam that are dotted with their villages. It's where I shot my first food and travel related show, and it sparked a deep interest in their traditions and culture. But filming something such as this in Vietnam has proved almost impossible. So when the opportunity to visit Candon and directly experience this aspect of the Katu life came about, it was something that I jumped at, and it's something that I deeply value. It's been a privilege to immerse myself in their world and witness the preservation of their unique way of life. If you happen to ever find yourself in the south of Laos in March, I would highly recommend visiting the Candon village. They conduct this ritual on the 5th of March every single year, so get a little bit off the beaten path. Go check out Candon. Leaving behind the spiritual world of Candon, we journey next to the shimmering waters of the Nam Sung River, where gold secretly overflows.
Look, if I make it big, I'm not gonna lie guys, this might be the last episode.
You see, there's some kind of primal excitement that I start to get when hunting for gold, and that excitement today is in full swing. It's remarkable what the rivers here provide for the locals, and yet the intense interest in the riches of the river here raise concerns about its future due to larger mining operations looking to move in.
What's the most amount of gold she's ever got in one day?
มื้อนี้ก็ได้3บักก็ได้2บักก็ได้
Almost close to 15 grams, about 20 million kip.
20 million kip. It's about $1,000. $1,000 a day.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I'd take that.
We're kicking things off in a small town near Luang Prabang, on a small river that feeds into the Mekong. This is the Nam Sung River. Here, we're meeting with Noi and her village. Together, they form one of the many village mining teams, eking out a living on this stretch of countryside in search of gold. A quick boat ride takes us down to the mining site, ready for action.
Already we've seen a few different gold mining operations on the way here. Seems like a very popular thing to do in this section of the river.
Even before we can get the cameras set up, the locals are already finding gold. It might not seem like much, just microscopic dust,
But the consistency with which they are finding it, I think, is the key here. Let's see how much they get.
pan after pan, load after load, this river just keeps on giving. And what's more surprising is the simplicity of the process. The sediment containing gold flakes is not that deep, eliminating the need for deep shafts, compressors, and other hazardous methods that I've encountered in the past. the men in the village dig with shovels until they reach the desired texture. Then it's simply loaded into a pan. Successful gold panning, I learned, hinges on just the right motion. A mix of shaking to stratify the material by density and gentle washing to remove lighter materials without losing the gold.
It's hard work, I will tell you that.
It's an art and a science. It demands patience, practice, and an eye for the gold's subtle glint among the sediment.
You can hear just from the excitement in their voices whether they've got someone on. Yet another load. I don't know what to say. I think these guys are all going to be rich. I'm definitely changing career. All right, so I'm going to give this a go. I once went on a panning trip, like a school trip when I was maybe 12, I think. I don't remember much. Hopefully this lady's going to show me what to do. She's loaded this up with a fair amount of substrate. Okay, firm grip, and then just, oh wow, it's like a rocking boat motion. Just side to side. Oh, we're like loosening up the substrate as we go. Splashing in a little bit more water, and then again. Oh man, she's like really firm with it. She's not happy with my form, that's for sure.
Lacking skill or patience, I quickly move on. But the women here are masters. The wooden pans they use have just enough buoyancy and lift that with a twist of the wrist, they're not even doing much work. It's an art that I admire, but definitely not something that I will be pursuing.
It seems like every time they finish one pan of gold, they're getting decent sized chunks at this point of gold.
Impressed by the first location, I venture a little further downstream to see how other villages are faring.
Sabari, so the operation here already looks pretty different.
With the homemade sluice in play, this wooden box, lined with artificial grass, relies on the principle that the dense gold particles will sink into the fabric of the fake grass fibers. And all this will happen while the lighter water and sediment will flow out over the top, and the larger, heavier rocks will simply roll and crawl into the water too.
Like we've been here 5 minutes maybe. The first lady that finished her pan, gold. Am I supposed to be this surprised? So it's interesting to me how just the introduction of one additional piece of equipment has changed the process pretty drastically.
I watch on as the villagers shovel large amounts of sediment into the top of the sluice. Periodically, they remove the artificial grass, hammering it above a wooden pan, and then they follow a very similar method to what we've seen before, slowly removing the remaining sediment until only the gold remains. This method they hope is more efficient, allowing them to remove the larger rocks and lighter soil with more ease. Essentially, it pre-processes the sediment.
Instead of panning just one shovel at a time, you're panning 10, 15, 20 shovels. I mean, they really spend a good amount of time on the sluice before transferring it over to the pan.
I'm left wondering why our first village hasn't adopted a similar technique.
อันนั้นคันว่ามันเฮ็ดบ่เฮ็ดมันบ่ได้ทันเจอมีเท่าปั่นเอาติ๊กๆตัวนี้ไวกว่า
This way is more
อันนั้นแบบว่าทน
faster for them.
Oh wow.
Quickly.
It's like different techniques
Yeah,
between
that
different
is
groups.
too many steps. They just here, they just
Quickly,
get in. Yeah, quickly.
many panners,
Yeah.
they get it done more quickly. Oh.
And as the day fades on, our team of villagers unveils pan after pan of consistently discovered gold.
Okay, so this lovely lady has hauled in the biggest pan of today. I see maybe 12 to 15 flakes of gold in one shovelful. That's pretty impressive. Winning. This seems to me like there's a lot of gold here. Do people from the surrounding areas not want to move here and mine gold also?
บ่มีผู้ย้ายมาหรอก
No one move in. Just nearby the village, they come.
The sheer consistency has resulted in a surprising volume by day's end, or by the time they're ready to wrap up.
So guys, I'm not the most experienced gold hunter in the world, but they have what seems to me to be a pretty large nugget of gold that they found just the other day upriver from this. It is a rather large nugget. They say it's about 5 million keep for this. That ain't a bad return for a day's work, especially in these parts. How long has she lived in this area?
ได้15ปีแล้ว
Okay, she's from another village, Vietnam, so she just been here for 15 years.
ย้อนว่าเฮาเฮ็ดเฮาสร้างนำเขาเจ้าเราไป ก็หันไปนี่นั่นแหละปั่นเงินปั่นคำแนวนี้หั่นแหละ
So many chance, yeah.
Oh wow.
Infrastructure, the thing, more income. So make their living is better than.
Wow, so things have gotten better, not worse. That's good to hear. Usually it's the opposite. What do you do in rainy season?
น้ำขึ้นแล้วก็บ่ได้ปั่น
So rainy season, the water is going to increase. Definitely stop panning the cone. So they will do another farming.
Oh, I see. And what is the hardest part about this job?
เฮาเฮ็ดบ่มีน้ำมีนะแล้วเฮาได้สระน้ำสระอันนั้นน่ะนะ
They have a specific zone to find gold, and sometimes the water is really high, so they have to drain off the water or something to make something the areas that really low water.
Right, I see. They've got to get to that specific type of substrate. What do they do with the gold that they get? Where do they sell it?
เอาไปขายเฮอหานนางแต่หั่นแหละ
Go to the market sell to the gold shop.
And how much are they able to sell it for?
500,000
เจ้า
kip
มาซื้อ
per 0.3 gram.
Oh, they measure in 0.3. It's 500,000 kip for 0.3.
เอ้ยบ่มาขายเพิ่นเราเอ้ยโทรอันไว้เราไปขายเมือง
Yes, and they have different kind of markets. Who give the good rate, they go.
Ah, I see. They sort of shop around at the market. Are there any large mining operations here, big companies that want to put in a mine here?
เออ
Yes,
เขา
there
เจ้า
is.
ก็มาซื้อแล้วอันนี้เขาเจ้าบ่ให้ลงเฮ็ด
Yeah, that is nearby.
And what does she think about that?
เพิ่นมาเฮ็ดมาอันนั้นเพื่อเฮามีรายได้นำเพิ่นหั่นน่ะ
Yeah, they are quite happy with because some parts of the job they give to the village as well. So local people can get some benefit from them as well.
Right. It seems like a great win-win. Okay, thank you very much. That was really interesting. Kapchai.
All of this is in stark contrast to what I witnessed in the Philippines, where gold seemed both scarcer and in far harder to reach locations, demanding far more dangerous work.
What's the worst thing that can happen?
Hindi mo siya nasa ilalim ka, hindi may drive yun, minsan nabagsak na lang.
Has that happened to you?
Hindi pa man.
No, never to you?
Never happened.
That's pretty lucky.
Here, gold mining embodies a life and death struggle. The pursuit of gold involves deep river dives where miners confront the ultimate risks for a chance at prosperity.
The clay under the first 2 meters is just hard enough to support the wall itself. At least that's the hope for the compressor miners. Breathing through just a man-made hose that you're holding in between your teeth, and probably one of the dodgiest compressors I have ever seen in my life. Man, this is a scary ass job. Do you ever run into problems with the government here?
Hindi naman
That's pretty good.
In this small town nestled on the coastline of Bicol region, gold mining has been a way of life for generations. The work is grueling and dangerous, and the rewards are often small. But for those who live here, the allure of striking it big, along with not having many other options, draws miners who risk their lives every day in the pursuit of a better future. While some gold mining in Paracale is done legally on private lands, the vast majority of it is conducted through illegal compressor mining on public lands. Small teams of miners armed with little more than shovels, bamboo-constructed mining shafts, and homemade dive compressors work tirelessly in the hopes of striking it rich. The pursuit of gold in Paracale is a stark reminder of the high costs of this precious metal, both in terms of human lives and the destruction of the environment.
The things that can go wrong is that the walls can collapse, the air can go out.
Hindi mo inaasahan kung anong pwede mangyari sa ilalim.
The process of mining gold in Paracale is a slow and painstaking one. Miners must first dig through layers of mud and gravel to reach the gold veins beneath. Then they must carefully extract the substrate using a combination of hand tools and small hand-cranked machinery. The work is backbreaking and the conditions are far from ideal.
What's the most gold you've ever got in one day?
10 grams.
10 grams. 10 grams is the most you ever got in one day. That seems really good. That's a lot of gold.
Once the correct substrate for gold is detected, divers will continue to excavate large amounts of it for further processing and panning. So I was not expecting that at all. Essentially, we've sort of just placed the bamboo support cage in place, and this diver just descended into nothing. What I thought was just mud, and he's completely disappeared into, really, I thought it was like ankle deep water, but he must be quite a way down there already. So they're sort of, I guess, gonna dig out under the cage and then keep lowering it further and further and further as he goes down. At least that's what I think. Who knows?
This excavation work is done underwater, and each dive can last for more than 4 hours.
So behind me, one very daring young guy is deep underground with a hose in his mouth, basically filling up a sack full of dirt that could potentially contain gold. He stays underwater for up to 3 to 4 hours, and they rotate this around in shifts, going for, I don't know, all day, as long as there's daylight. The shirtless guy behind me is in charge of the driver's life. He's basically there to ensure that the air is running, that the compressor is fine, and that the line does not tangle. He then passes it on to the guy who is softening the dirt for further processing. He's basically just mashing it into the side of this barrel that they have there, and the idea behind that is to soften it up so that you can then pan it and check if there is gold in the dirt. There's definitely no filtering going on. I don't know what that thing must taste like. This is some scary kind of shit. I have to admit, nothing seems scarier to me. If you are claustrophobic at all, this would be an absolute nightmare job. Just watching it gives me shivers.
The conditions are dangerous as the mud walls can collapse at any time, burying the divers underground and underwater, completely cutting off their air supply.
Whoa, so that it just crumbles in around you. What happened? You just had to scramble?
Dead.
Dead. Oh my God, man. Oh. Deliberately digging away at the wall and floor that could collapse anytime, breathing through just a man-made hose you're holding in between your teeth, and probably one of the dodgiest compressors I have ever seen in my life. These yellow sandbags are used to support the wall of the sandbank and just ensure that it doesn't collapse. Just supported by a bamboo frame for maybe 1.5 meters, 2 meters tops, and you just keep going down after that. The clay under the first 2 meters is just hard enough to support the wall itself. At least that's the hope for the guy underground with the tube in his mouth. Does the oxygen ever stop coming to you? Do you ever lose air?
No,
Whoa. So hole number 1, kind of a dud. Hole number 2 has been begun. These guys work quick. I mean, this riverbank here is just filled with holes, empty holes, potholes that are empty now, that are kind of done. I think this is kind of the process. You sort of just work your way up the river, dig a hole, get some gold, you keep going. If you don't, you keep moving along. And so there you can kind of see why this is very controversial and probably why it's illegal. I mean, the destruction to an environment like this, it's crazy. These guys went through one hole in one morning and a brand new one now in the afternoon. And it's a little bit of a pity. This area is stunning in Paracale. We're sort of not that far from the beach, maybe 1 kilometer inland from the beach. It's a really, really pretty corner of the Philippines.
Despite the risks, the lure of gold continues to draw these miners to Paracale, and they work tirelessly to extract the precious metals from the earth.
How you doing, man? That kind of looks crazy. Is this kind of mining dangerous?
Delikado din.
How deep down do you go when you go down?
7 to 8 feet.
7 to 8 feet. How many people have you seen die?
Isa pa lang.
One.
What's the feeling like when you're underwater? What's it feel like when you're trying to dig around?
Pag nasa ilalim mo kasi ng tubig, madilim yun. Hindi mo inaasahan kung anong pwede mangyari sa ilalim.
What does the air taste like? Isn't it weird breathing through a tube?
Oil.
It tastes like petrol.
Man. Are you always mining in an area like this, or are there other areas that you mine? You know, in a forest or at the ocean?
Marami din sa kuan. Minsan sa bundok, bitahan naman yun. Tapos kuan din sa dun sa Malagit.
Who do you sell the gold to? How do you make the money out of this?
Doon sa financier namin, may financier kasi kami dito, yun nakakuha na sa amin ng ginto.
Anyway, thanks for the interview. I hope you get a really big score of gold one day.
Thanks.
As the men dive, older women and younger children pan the riverbeds downstream of the divers. They do this to look for flakes of gold, dredged up by the mining teams, but that have passed through undetected.
The lady behind me is doing the most basic form of gold mining you could, and that is essentially just digging up the riverbed and panhandling for gold. And to be honest, that's the one I'd go for. I wouldn't want to dive down into that claustrophobic hole. That sounds horrible.
As we film, one of the ladies and her daughter pans up a few flakes of gold.
We're just watching here, and this lovely old lady has finally managed to get some gold. I just think this is the coolest thing. She's been panning all day long, and it's just a few tiny specks of gold flake, and that's what they're out here for, you know, all day panning away, in some instances going down in incredibly dangerous holes, and now she's finally got some gold. How long did it take you to get this gold?
Mulang alas 7 hanggang ngayong tanghali.
How much is this gold worth?
Mga 300, ay wala naman itong 300.
100 to 300 pesos. Congratulations, thank you very much. I'm really happy for you. It's cool to see this working out. The gold that the old lady got, 300 pesos, is maybe about $5. I imagine if she gets that in one day, $5 a day, best case scenario, $10 a day. I don't know, it's not a lot, but that kind of money here can go a long way.
It's a small but tangible reward for their labor, and I'm eager to see how she processes it further at her camp nearby.
So as the final part of the process, the gold is going to be mixed with mercury somehow, and I think that's just going to cause all of the different fragments or flakes of gold to come together into one block that they can sell.
From Namsung, we head to the haunting landscapes of Tabak and Phom Savan, where we uncover how remnants of a war are being forged into new beginnings. These are bomboats, a utilitarian tool for the life on rivers in southern Laos, crafted from devastating tools of war, now ingenious tools of survival.
From that time to now, it's about 50 boats already.
He built 50 boats?
Yeah.
อยู่คู่อยู่พาเขาก็หามาบ้าน
Only this village, they can build this kind of boat.
Oh wow.
And these are spoons and utensils, cast from unexploded ordnance and weapons left behind from the secret war waged in Laos during the Vietnam War period.
ตาย6 คนยังติเหลือ
ตอนนั้นเขาแก้เองกันมั้ย
แล้วเขามั่งเขาจะเอามาขายนี่
Yeah, they got the experience like that. There were like 7 people, and they tried to crack it, and then it exploded. 6 people dead. You lucky him. He was stay far away from them.
Wow.
So at that time.
Incredibly lucky, huh?
But how is it possible that decades on from a war that wasn't even supposed to exist, people are making a living, repurposing the deadly artifacts into ingenious functional tools for survival?
In this region, these are the cars. This is your vehicle. It's how you get to school. It's how you load up your groceries. It's how you ship goods up and down the river. It is these bomboats that have stood the test of time.
Here in Tabak, they are the dominant form of transport. It's honestly shocking here when you see a boat of any other kind, made from any other material.
The craziest thing about it to me is as we drive along these riverbanks, they're lined with these bomboats, and it fascinates me. I want to know everything. Why are they so popular here? How did they get so many of them? There's literally been enough supply for them to build their boats out of for 60 years.
To get a grip on it, it's first important to understand exactly what these boats are and where they came from.
These boats, they really are a pretty unique way to experience a beautiful corner of Laos. I'd encourage it.
During the Vietnam War and covert operations in the secret war in Laos, the skies bore witness to an unprecedented aerial campaign. Aircraft such as the F-4 Phantom, the A-4 Skyhawk, and even the B-52 bomber were each equipped with drop tanks to extend their lethal reach. These auxiliary fuel tanks, designed to be expendable, were a critical innovation, enabling these aircraft to carry additional fuel for long-distance raids over North Vietnam and clandestine missions over Laos. The drop tanks, typically long, cigar-shaped pods, were attached to the aircraft's underbelly or wings, allowing these fighter jets and bombers to penetrate deep into enemy territory without the need to refuel. However, in the heat of combat or to evade anti-aircraft fire, pilots would jettison these tanks to lighten their load and reduce drag, enhancing the aircraft's maneuverability and speed. This practice led to countless drop tanks littering the landscapes of Laos and Vietnam.
What I do know is that Laos was the most bombed country per capita in the history of mankind. 2 million tons of bombs dropped during the Vietnam War. And that's a lot of fuel tanks that they had to jettison over these countries.
And that's where bomb boats come in. Not technically bombs, these hollow aluminium pods made for ideal boats if they were not completely destroyed on impact. And in Tarbac, they have become a way of life, invaluable due to their ruggedness, lightweight, and practical immunity to corrosion. Well maintained, these boats can last a lifetime.
สู่ลูกสู่หลานก็ยังใส่ได้อยู่มันบ่เพ่หั่นนะเพ่มีแต่ไม้นี่ดอกเฮาละเปลี่ยนใหม่เล็กมันยังคือเก่า
This kind of boat is very long-term use. 100 years or more than that. If you take a wooden, it's going to be broke sometime because wet and dry and thing is going to be damaged after.
Yeah, right. So these boats must be, like you said, I mean, well, they've become boats maybe 20, 30 years ago, but they've been here for 60 years, something like that, hidden in a jungle, and they're still in pretty good condition.
เฮือเฮานี่ล่ะเฮ็ดปีอันเก่าๆเฮือเฮาเนี่ย
1999, that boat.
This is 99?
Yeah.
They know the age of each boat?
กระทุ่งกลมๆแล้วมามั่งเฮ็ดใหม่
Almost
เลย
30 years, that one.
And they are particularly suited to this area of Laos due to the water conditions.
เขตอื่นล่ะค่ะเจ้าไส้บ่อยากได้ประเภทน้ำของน้ำมันฟ้าโลมน่ะมันละจม
It's not like a big river like Mekong or something. They have very big wave of the river. So this is very calm, very smooth for this kind of boat because it is very light. They cannot go to the big rivers.
Right, so it's sort of suited for these like really smooth river basins. All right, so my lady's boat has apparently a more powerful engine, but that has a downside in that she's not able to go slowly. We go really fast or we stop. There is no in between. I kind of like that philosophy in life. Let's roll. My kind of boat.
The boats here have been primarily made by Mr. Inter, and once this village got a reputation for their preference for this kind of boats, all the fuel tanks located in the jungles around the central Laos border would be brought here for sale.
This village now has a reputation for the boats, so if they find them anywhere along this stretch of the trail, they will bring them to this village to make a boat. And do they still bring them here today? Like when was the last one that they got bought here?
ลำหนึ่งอยู่เฮือนพอถาว่าลงแล้วยังลำหนึ่งอยู่เฮือนยังใหม่ๆบ่ทันได้ใส่
Yes, lately they just found it two boat. So they found it last September.
Last September? That's really not that long ago. It's crazy they're still finding these things in the jungle. Wow. How much does a boat like this cost?
30 ล้านคันเดียวนี่คันซื้อตะกี้ก็บ่ฮอดตะกี้ละประมาณ10 ล้านนี่แหละ
This is also depends on the demanding because some part they're gonna sell cheaper, some part is higher, but average between 2,000 US per boat.
Wow, that's a decent amount of money, right? When he gets this, what did it look like and what did he have to do to put it in the kind of shape that it's in now?
ว่ามันเลยตาบก่อนเนาะมันหูเป็นหูโหลหูมันแตกมาแล้วได้ตาบแล้วก็ซื้อไม้แผ่นนี่มาใส่มาเฮ็ด
Mostly when they got this tank, it's not really a good shape, so it's gonna be the hole or something. They have to cross it, and then they have to make a reshape for a good shape for the boat, and then strength with the wooden around. Yeah, be strong, and check everywhere is a good right position and thing. Yeah.
And are they good boats? What goes wrong with them? Why does he have to fix them every now and then?
อันนี้มันก็หึงมันก็โดกไม้แผ่นนี่เห็นไหม
Mostly the wooden they have this damage with the time. And also sometimes the boatman they hit the lock, so they have to fix it.
Just needs to hammer it out. Huh, interesting.
Since 1989, he started to be a boat maker.
Wow.
From that time to now, it's about 50 boats already.
He built 50 boats?
Yeah.
Wow, is he the only boat builder in this village or are there other ones?
Only this guy.
Only this guy. So he's responsible really for all of the boats that are here today. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, khop chai.
Khop chai. Khop chai. In this village, the local craftsmen here, the local boat builders are able to take whatever is left of those fuel tanks when they land in the jungle, hammer them back into shape, patch any holes with like hand-hammered rivets. And it's a cute little village. There's ladies weaving, there's people cooking marijuana chicken. It's a beautiful little area. And my trip to Tarbak was one well worth it. They have some interesting foods here, including commonly eating marijuana chicken, which I couldn't pass up on the menu. I've seen marijuana grown all over Vietnam, but they turn it into clothing. They've never eaten it. And so I was really surprised to find out that this marijuana chicken here is a dish. I was also thinking that it would add no hallucinogenic effects, but Virginia, our lovely guide, was wondering if he had to drive after eating it. So let's find out. Who knows? Is this going to have any effect at all? This isn't a cooking episode. I'm going to take like 3 bites, but let's see how. Let's see how this is. Wow. I mean, it just tastes like that's incredibly spicy soup. I don't know what marijuana tastes like, to be honest, anyway, but it definitely doesn't taste like marijuana smells. In general, that is really good. Super meaty, incredibly strong soup flavor. And we'll take 1 bite of chicken and then we're cutting because I'm finishing my lunch off camera. That, guys, is really good chicken soup. I will report back in voiceover as to any kind of side effects. Goodbye. Unfortunately for subsequent generations of Laotians, much of what was left behind was much more deadly than fuel drop tanks. Bombs like the BLU-42 disperse into 540 smaller cluster mines each. These were designed not to detonate on impact. Instead, each individual mine spreads out 8 tripwires that will detonate once touched. And up to 30% of ordnance dropped during the war did not detonate, either by design or malfunction. They now entirely cover the hillsides of Laos. And in the town of Phon Savan, villagers have been melting down the remaining ordnance for decades. The collection of these unexploded ordnance, or UXOs, can be incredibly dangerous work. And visiting these places is kind of eye-opening.
We're surrounded by UXOs, actual UXOs. These are unexploded ordnance. I assumed that they'd already been cleared. What am I doing here? Why am I filming this? This lady just pointed out to me that this still has the firing pin in it. This is live. They're going to explode it in the jungle. Why am I holding this? This place is crazy.
Each household here makes cast items from the thankfully mostly disarmed ordnance. And if not booming, well, this village is in pretty good swing. As I walk through town, there's a good 5 or 6 houses making huge quantities of primarily spoons as we arrive. It's hard to really get a feel for just how much ordnance was dropped on these places when you just look at the numbers. It doesn't give you that visceral feel you get when you see this kind of stuff in action. There's everything here, from bazookas to aircraft parts to cluster bombs and everything in between.
How many spoons can his family make in one day?
1,000 Yeah, so about 800 to 1,000 spoons per day.
800 to 1,000 spoons, yeah. That's wild. And how much does he sell them for?
About 3,000 per spoon.
3,000.
And they sell in set, like a 10 each.
10 for 30,000 kip.
Yep.
The process here starts with professional gatherers who collect aluminium UXOs and shrapnel. These guys earn their living by collecting these materials, detonating the explosives inside, and selling the scraps to these kinds of villages. Thankfully, Due to education and experience learned over the decades, there are few mistakes made nowadays by these professional collectors. Additionally, there is MAG and other NGO organizations supported by public contributions and government funds.
Was he ever in a dangerous situation? Did any of the ordnance ever explode whilst he was trying to collect it or anything like that?
ตาย6 คนแล้วยังติเหลือ
ตอนนั้นเขาแกะเองมันบ่
แล้วเขามั่งเขาจะเอามาขายนี่
Yeah, they got the experience like that. There were like 7 people, and they tried to crack it, and then it exploded. 6 people dead. Only him and this guy, the owner of this house, is survived.
กระบอด
You lucky him. He was stay far away from them.
Wow.
So at that time.
Incredibly lucky, huh?
These guys are dedicated to clearing UXOs from the region. And I learned that when MAG's professionals clear an area of UXOs, that they return the now harmless metals to the community members who reported the issues. Fortunately, this means that villagers no longer need to risk their lives in order to collect materials they found themselves, and that they no longer have an incentive to keep it secret and try to do the disarmament in-house.
What does MAG mean?
MAG means Mines Advisory Group. Since MAG has been cleared the bombs in Laos, we have cleared about 330,000 UXO.
Wow.
Yeah. So right now we clear at least about 1,500 bombs per month.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's still a lot.
That's a lot. I think what is most surprising to me about this little village is just how many of these houses are actively melting down the ordnance, and that all seem to have orders. We're just here on a random Saturday, and as we stroll down the village, there's 3, 4, 5, 6 families. You just see the smoke, you see the UXOs stacked in a pile, and they're constantly just churning out these spoons and the other items. And there's a lot of them. There's a serious amount of UXOs, and everyone seems to have an order. Everyone seems to be busy.
The casting process starts out with the mold being made. An incredibly fine sand is heavily compacted around a spoon-shaped pattern to form the mold cavity. It has vents added for gases to escape and a channel for the molten aluminium to be poured into the pattern. And once complete, the pattern is carefully removed. This meticulous process ensures that the final product will have the desired shape and details.
How long has he been doing this for, and his family in general?
ประมาณ10 ปลายปี20 ปีนี่แหละประมาณนั้นแหละ
Wow. With the 2 generations, first parents for 10 years something, and then for him it's 20 years already.
If necessary, larger UXO pieces are dismantled to isolate the aluminium parts. The aluminium is then melted directly in the fire with no crucible being used. The metal here reaches a liquid state at around 660 degrees Celsius. This step transforms the remnants of conflict into the raw materials ready to be repurposed.
Is this a bazooka? I always wanted to hold a bazooka.
The molten aluminium is then carefully poured into sand molds. Precision in this step ensures that the metal fills the mold cavity completely, capturing the intended shape of the spoon with little waste.
And what does he hope for his kids? What does he hope that they will do?
ฮอดพูนแล้วบ่มีแล้วบ่ญาติบ่มีอันเศษอันนี้แล้ว
Yeah, probably some of the kids will continue. Some may not because of they're gonna don't have more aluminum thing there to do. Yeah, so they're gonna find something else.
Yeah, and he's happy with that, whatever they will do.
Softly, This poor kid is scared of my drone. He's fine with handling UXOs, but drones, too much for him.
After pouring, the aluminium is left to cool and solidify within the molds while the next batch is being poured. This critical waiting period allows for the metal to adopt the mold's shape fully. The newly formed spoons are then removed from the mold and undergo a series of finishing touches. They snip off any excess aluminium and then they file or sand down any rough edges.
Where do they get all this ordnance here?
เก็บซื้อนำประชาชนหรือว่าเก็บซื้อนำมันพ่อค้ากลางตัวนี้ก็ได้นะ
Mainly from the local people, like not different from the boating. So they go to the jungle, they fry it, they collect it, and sell to them.
They bring it here because they know this village is going to turn it into something. I see.
And the unique story surrounding their origin has sparked a demand among tourists, with many of the designs today finding their way to night markets in Luang Prabang and other popular destinations.
Surely these bombs are running out now.
ต ต่อหน้าไปคันว่า เป็นพวกเศษอันนี้หมดแล้วก็มีแต่ธุรกิจแบบเลี้ยงสัตว์
If they don't have it, they're gonna go for another type of farming or something.
Something
For
else.
them, yeah.
So they're happy to move on if they run out of bombs.
It's my hope that the growing demand for these unique utensils plays some kind of role in reducing the amount of UXOs across Laos. I hope that it's true that those involved today in the collection of these ordnance now know the risks and take steps to mitigate the issues.
They know that the bomb is dangerous, but when they clear their own lands and they don't know that the bomb is there, and then hit the bomb
when they're farming.
And they put a fire on the top and then bomb.
Right.
Yes.
MAG itself has destroyed over 1,977 UXOs in the 2 primary provinces in which they operate just this February when I recorded this video alone. But it's really not enough for these guys to handle alone.
They were children, the kid, and then just 6 years. They walk together to school and they found it and they grab it and play with them.
Play with the bombs.
Yeah, they don't know it, and then it explodes.
Wow.
3 people.
Wow.
One is died.
Wow.
One is injured, and him.
Wow. That's rough, man. What injuries did he suffer?
มีลูกนึงหันโซดเลยลูกนึงหันขา
Oh, 2. One is stuck in it, and one is through out.
Wow.
Yeah.
แต่ว่ามันแบบสะเก็ดน้อยถืออัน
And the piece, another one is somewhere.
Wow.
In it.
So you have many.
Many scars.
Many
Yeah,
scars.
scar.
อันนี้ก็ถืออันนั้น
Also in the forehead. Wow.
แต่มันดาดจน
Oh. Wow. There is one is they couldn't fight at that time. After 20 years later, they could fight and take it off.
Wow. That's incredible, man. Well, that's quite lucky, huh?
Over 2 million tons of ordnance were dropped over Laos during the Vietnam War period. That equates to an average of about 25 tons of bomb every hour for 24 hours a day for 9 consecutive years.
Last year in 2023, there were about 16 accidents. About 47 people were killed and injured.
Wow.
Yeah.
And while NGOs are making commendable strides in UXO clearance, the scale of the problem here is just overwhelming. By fostering a market that turns instruments of war into functional everyday items, and ones with a story that serve as a tangible reminder to Laos history, I hope that these guys are contributing to a broader effort that doesn't just aim to reclaim land, but that seeks to heal this nation.
That is it for this video, guys, and for the entirety of this existing Laos series, but this is a fascinating country, definitely one that I'm coming back to, so let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next time. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in next week's video. Goodbye.